Hey, everybody, what is going on? We are on episode number 7 of the GMI Rocket Show, where we talk to immigration tech founders, entrepreneurs, executives, marketing experts, people who are growing the immigration space. I'm Roman Zelechenko, your host, the founder of Laborless and the founder of GMI Rocket. And I'm so excited to have my guest today, Umesh Vaidyamath, who is the CEO of INSZoom. You've probably heard of INSZoom if you've been to any immigration law event, especially an ALA event in the past, 20 years. So I'm really excited to talk to Umesh about, everything he's learned over 2 decades of building and growing an immigration tech company, what he's seen across multiple, decades of fluctuation in immigration law, and, where INSZoom is, where it's heading, and really what Umesh thinks is the future of immigration tech, especially from his point of view. So please welcome Umesh. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you, Roman, for hosting this wonderful event. I think the story of immigration legal tech was never told. I really would like to congratulate you on this initiative from probably on behalf of entire immigration legal tech community. I would like to really thank you for putting an effort in bringing everyone together. Thank you.
I appreciate that too. I mean, it was one of those things, for me, the reason I really wanted to even start this podcast or this show and podcast is because we chatted about this a little bit earlier, but when I was building Laborless and I really had ideas about immigration technology and I was starting to think about, how do I do this? Where do I go? I didn't really have anywhere to turn to. There are so many amazing podcasts out there. NPR, one of my favorites is NPR's How I Built This. I'm sure a lot of people listen to that one. There are a lot of really good business podcasts, but of course, none of them were ever about the immigration space. And so what I had to do was listen to the podcasts and try to relate everything back to immigration. But at the same time, there are people like you and others who just have built it, have done it. You have all the insights. You have so much amazing information, such a great story. So I'm so excited to dive into that. And so obviously, especially in the immigration space, obviously people know you as the CEO of INSZoom. But obviously, what's fun for me is to think about always, how did you get to the point of starting the company? And I'll get to this later, but as a sneak peek, you started it in your garage. So very much the Apple story of tinkering in your garage and, in your home in California and turning it into what it is today. But before going back a little bit, before you even started INSZoom, how did you came to America as, a foreign national on an H-1B visa? Is that right? And so you were the person that now your clients are servicing. So what was that experience like? And what was it like for you to come to the US for the first time?
Sure. I graduated in India in 1989 and arrived in the United States in 1990. I was working for a company that's based out of Mumbai. Also, they had operations in the United States. So I came here as a software engineer working with them, and I was posted in Kansas City. So for me, when I came, I didn't know anything about immigration or visas. So it was a very interesting experience. I didn't even know what a H1 was, what a business visa was, what a green card was. I had no idea. So I had just come to this country, and when my H1 got to be transferred from one company to another company during those days, like it would take literally a week or maybe maximum 2 weeks. And you just had one form, you had to fill it up. And immigration was never a challenge that time. And all you had to do is fill up a form and it is done. And you would get your H1 transfer. There was no quota, and everything was just easy that time, as far as I remember. So
that's amazing. It's crazy to think about how different it was back then. What was it like? What was it like to go to Kansas City? Actually, let me back up. Was that your first time in the US when you came to Kansas City, or did you come here before?
No, that was my first time in the United States. Or for that matter, leaving my home country, India.
Okay. What did you think when you got to Kansas City?
Like, interestingly, I landed in the United States on July 4th evening. And I didn't know that that day was the America's Independence Day. So when my flight is landing and I could see firecrackers lighting up the sky in Kansas City, I was like, what is going on? Is America happy that I'm here?
Yeah, that's your. You didn't know that, but that was your welcome party from the
That was
company.
my welcome party.
That's so cool. No way. That's so funny. Were you flying above the fireworks, or was it just because that would be? I've never seen that. It probably looks really cool from above.
Right now, 1 hour about to land, I could see there was
Okay.
fireworks happening in the city. Then I asked air hostess, what's happening. Then she said, today is America's Independence Day.
Wow.
So that is a great day for me to come to this country.
What an introduction. That's amazing. So you came here in an H-1B and you were working with, a company that initially sponsored you. Then you said you had an H-1B transfer. How long did it take for you to, I guess, become, get your green card and go through that whole process? And sort of at what point did you start thinking about immigration as, an industry, as something that presents challenges that maybe needs a solution? Like how did those things happen?
For me, right along when I was in college, when I was doing my computer science engineering, I always wanted to build a software product. That was my passion. Mm-hmm. So it was basically what I'm going to build. So first product I tried to build was when I was in college for a banking software I built when I was in India. And the product was built, but I really could not sell it to enough customers. That's what basically drove me from my hometown where I was doing that to Mumbai. Wow. And in Mumbai, I got a job. Then I came to United States. But still, the passion in me to build a product was still very much alive inside me. So I was just thinking of different ideas. So in 1992, I built another product in the United States when I was working. So again, the same challenge. I didn't know how to sell a product. I didn't know whom to approach. So I had built a product because I was an engineer. So it was easy to build things for me. And I was creative, come up with ideas. And even that product, I could not really put it to the market. Mm-hmm. So that way, INSZoom is my third attempt at being an entrepreneur. That is now the first one.
What are the first? Do you remember what the first two products were?
Yeah, first product was in '89 when I was in college. It's called share accounting software for credit unions in India. So that is the first one. Second one was in '92 I built. That is it would generate code. If you put few parameters, it could generate COBOL code for large enterprises. Mm-hmm. So that is the second product that I had built. And third product is an INSZoom. Wow. So it is just for me, that passion was I wanted to build a product. I wanted to offer my innovation, my ideas to the larger audience. Mm-hmm. So the third product was basically as INSZoom that I built.
And how did you come to think of INSZoom? I mean, I imagine it's because of your own immigration process. Was it because you were working with an attorney and you saw that the attorney had a lot of paperwork, or, what sparked that idea versus really anything else?
It is interesting. During late 90s, America was going through .com boom. Mm-hmm. So everybody in Silicon Valley, for a software engineer, you wanted to build a product. And for me, I wanted to build something. So I was looking for ideas. Okay, hey, what is that we could do? And I had another one of my brother. His name is Umesh Vaidyamath. He's also an entrepreneur, and right now he's in India. He runs his own staffing business in Bangalore. So he was in the United States, and me and him would always brainstorm ideas. Okay, what is that we can build? What are the problems we can solve? So one fine day, he comes to me and he says, hey, there is an immigration attorney in San Francisco, and he wants a website to be built. Come with me. Maybe we can go and talk to him. Maybe we'll find a problem to solve there, or maybe we can help him out. So I had no interest in building a website because for my passion was building a product. Mm-hmm. Then I just wanted to help my brother out. I said, okay, let me come with you. Let's see what's out there. When we went back and we start speaking to this immigration attorney, my first question was, tell me, why do you need a website? And his answer was, I see there are law firms, like one was, he mentioned, a Murthy.com, Sheila Murthy, who had become super successful with a great website. Then he talked about Greg Siskand. He also had a website. And one more is a call system, I believe. The folks where that build their business on immigration. So I'm building immigration websites and providing free legal content to consumers. So that's huge that time. So they said, look, I want to have a website and where I would like to attract new customers. Then I told him, they already built, so you will be copying. You are not going to get attraction like the way they did. So we need to come up with something else for you. If your intention is to do a business development, we need to come up with a different idea. Then a couple of days back, I had seen Federal Express a package that came to my house, and it had a tracking number on the shipment, and it would give you the status on Federal Express website. If you go to FedEx.com and put a tracking number, they would tell you where exactly what a case status, where a shipping status was. So during the conversation, I told this attorney, instead of doing that, how about one of the problem I see with immigration law firms is I have gone through the same process where our green cards are being applied or a H1 is being applied. There is it's almost, it goes in a dark hole. We don't know what is happening with our case status. We call you, you guys are busy. So why don't you provide a case status to your customers so that they know exactly where their H1B case status is, where their green card case status is, or even their labor certification status is, right? So that really got him excited. So then he said, yes, I think that sounds like a great idea. How can you do this? I said, okay, you know what? I can build a module, and it's going to cost you $30,000. And if you are willing, then we'll get that built for you in a couple of weeks. That's what I told him. Then he said, yeah, I would love to do that. So me and my brother, we come home. Then we thought we'll just build this. It as some money that we'll do it on the side. So along with our full-time jobs. So when I was doing that, after a week, I started realizing, maybe this is something we can turn this into a product. We don't have to just make it this as an give it to one law firm. So when I went to meet him next time, I said, you know what? How about we basically build this product, make this a product, and you can be our customer too. And you don't need to pay anything for this, and I will take all the expenses. Then he said, no, I would like to be a partner in this venture. That's another thing he offered. Then I wasn't sure whether it is a right partnership for us because he's an attorney, he's busy, I'm an engineer. So I said, okay, we can talk about it, but would he be interested in being my first customer? He said, yeah, he will be interested. So that's how INSZoom was born. So initial idea for INSZoom was not a case management, what you're thinking of today. It was just supposed to be a foreign national portal where foreign nationals come, they check their case status and see where it is. That's it, nothing else. So the first version for INSZoom was just two modules, one for the foreign nationals, another module for law, immigration attorneys and paralegals to go back and update the status. It did not do anything else. That was as simple as that. And interestingly, I spoke to several other immigration attorneys in San Francisco about this idea while I was still building it. Because I had learned with my past two experiences where I had built the product, tried to sell. This time, while I was building, I started speaking to customers, hey, prospects, hey, would you be interested in this idea? So I started validating my idea, whether it's something they're willing to pay for it. So I had another 4 or 5 law firms who were interested in this module. So in 3 weeks, I was able to get this product out. Then connected with these customers. And even another change we did was we didn't want to sell the software those days. Remember, SaaS was a very new concept. So Salesforce had started their services. It was in 99, 2000 time. So we made INSZoom also as an SaaS product where you pay a monthly subscription fees and use it, and it's always available to you. And it's not given by license. You don't have to pay maintenance fee or anything. It's always available on the internet, on the cloud. So that's how INSZoom was born, as a simple case tracking software. With I had around 25 screens. That's it. The first module that was released to the customer, and the best part is we had paying customers. So we did not offer that product for free. It was a paying service that when we charged to our customers.
That's so. I mean, there are so many lessons there. The first thing that I thought about was how you came up with the idea, or at least you were inspired by the FedEx tracking number. To me, that's such a lesson of getting inspiration from other places. No idea is ever purely from nothing. It's always a combination of different things. So you combine your experience in immigration, what you heard from this lawyer, what FedEx was doing in a totally different industry, and you said, why don't we put some of these things together and create something new out of it? So, I think I'm saying this for myself, but I think a lot of people who start businesses think that they have to build something completely radically new, but the reality is a lot of times it's combining things that work in other different places together into a place where it doesn't exist yet. To me, that was such an interesting thing. But the other thing is, to your point, I love the idea of, before this, you built everything and then started to sell it. But now common, business practice says validate from day one. If you just have the idea on paper, validate it, just to think it's here, it's not crazy. And then as you're building it, start validating more and get interest and things like that. Do you think, because, you guys have never raised any money, and obviously you had paying clients, I suppose, from day one. Do you think that this is something that but there are everyone now gets venture capital. So I guess this is jumping ahead a little bit, but, what are your thoughts about building a business kind of how you did it, where you incrementally build something that people are interested in paying for, versus getting a ton of money right away, building something and then kind of figuring it out?
I think it depends on the product and the market.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I was lucky enough. I was able to bootstrap the product without taking any money from outside, because I myself was an engineer. And the best part is my wife also is a software engineer. So I had an additional resource. Then my elder brother, who works with me in INSZoom right now, his name is Umesh Vaidyamath. He's also an engineer. So they all contributed to my initial ideas. So I had this, I would say, family resources that kind of pitched in for me to build my initial code. So I didn't have to really focus on getting any funding from anywhere else. But along with that, this idea of that's something we started as a small, it really did not require additional funding, what I was doing. So I was able to reach out to the customers, then I was able to basically and make some calls and visit them in San Francisco downtown. Some of these prospects were in the right here in the city. So I started validating with them what they like, whether they are happy with what I'm proposing, or listen to them, whether there's anything else they would need. So depending on the product that you're building, you may have to take funding. Because if you take the funding, the biggest advantage is you will be able to scale faster, right? So for us, again, you have to look at your competitive landscape. And if you think that you can do without the money, then I would say do without the money, right? Because you don't want to dilute your shares and stocks in the company. But if you think you really need to do it because your competition is basically going much ahead of you, without those dollars you cannot compete, then I would recommend you getting some money from seed investors, or maybe from private equity, or even the VCs. So, but I would not recommend just go and get the money because just for the sake of it. You have to basically have a plan. Otherwise, you are going to just dilute your your equity in the company. I know a friend of mine, he kept on taking funding again and again. Then after 7 and 8 years, he had left with so less equity. One, he had an exit, and it wasn't even worth it for him.
Wow.
So you have to be very careful on when you liquidate your equity. It's very important. So, I mean, if you have to do it. I'm not saying we should not do it. It really helps. So, but for early years of INSZoom, the competitors we had, some of them were well-funded and some of them were not. But the rate at which we were able to grow, the rate at which we were able to sign up customers, and I realized I don't really need money from anywhere else. But if I'd seen that I'm struggling because I lack funds, then I would have reached out to someone to give me funds. But I was able to really look at my competition and look at how INSZoom was doing. Then I decided, you know what, I know we can do well without taking any money from outside.
And probably as you're building a company, if you can get to at least some level of growth on your own, that looks really good for when you're going to go out to get money, because they know that you can be very resourceful.
Yep.
Versus, people who get funding immediately from day one. You've heard there are success stories, but there are of course also stories where they blow their money on things that was unreasonable. But anyway, I just think that's interesting, because as obviously we're seeing more immigration companies taking outside funding, which I think is great on various levels, but obviously it's just a different way of operating the business. Okay, but I want to kind of scale it back a little bit again, because so you launched INSZoom. It was a family business. I guess it kind of still, you're still working with some folks in your family, which is really, really nice. You had your first few clients that were paying as you were building for them. You were getting interest from other clients, and so INSZoom was slowly taking step after step after step. But then, of course, or this probably was during the .com bubble bursting. And then after that, I mean, now it's 2020. So you went through that and you continued to grow. How did you get through that first sort of recession? As a very young company, I guess. And then maybe if you can walk me through a little bit what that next decade was like until we hit 2008, where there was another recession. Sort of how did you get through that?
I think it's a great question. If I remember, in 2000 is one were really making some noise in the market, and were able to get some customers, and .com burst happened and recession started hitting in. So we faced two challenges that time. One was, since most of the .com companies were going out of business, which are basically cloud-based, just like INSZoom. So customers were questioning me, hey, how do I know that INSZoom is going to be around a year from now?
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's one. Then second challenge that also we faced was getting having the prospect to trust INSZoom that will keep their data safe.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no magic that I could do to make them trust me, but I was able to talk to this law firm saying, listen, the future is going to be the cloud. All your computers and your software, all of them in the future, they'll be offered on the cloud, and this is the future. What we're offering at INSZoom is the future. Mm-hmm. So some of the law firms basically who were able to see the future, they start signing up with INSZoom. So though money was tight, remember the first 2 years, I knew that I will not be able to make enough money to pay for our expenses and everything. So I was not making any salary, anything out of the company. This is something that I'm doing on my own. Mm-hmm. So for 2.5 years is when we were able to hit the break-even point. So all I had to do was to stay around, focus on the customers, and spend more time knowing what they're looking for. So there's a time when I started with just a case tracking software, and to slowly we start expanding into adding other features into the product. So customers were still willing to pay and buy the software because they realize that they need to have software to improve their efficiency. Mm-hmm. So we're able to basically keep on adding more features to the product and having listen to the customers. And again, these customers are paying customers. It's not that we're giving a trial software to anyone. So from day one, every customer that we had, we never gave anyone free. We always made sure that we charged the customer at a monthly subscription price. Then when they wanted some feature to be built, since he was a paying customer, and we were able to go back and keep adding those features. So it's just our philosophy of INSZoom and listen and deliver. So I think that really helped us to get through our initial first recession. Mm-hmm. So we added the new features, and we added new modules to the product, and that really helped us to continue to add more customers. I think most important thing is during the recession is a time when that happens. Things may slow down, but everyone at that time would like to tighten their belt. They like to improve the efficiency. That's where I think software firms can really play an important role. You know what? If you use technology, you can improve your efficiency. So if you can basically offer solution that will truly solve the customer's problem, they will pay and they will come on board.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing that now too, right? And during the COVID crisis, where some of the companies that are the most successful are companies like Slack, Microsoft, they upped their game with Teams. Zoom, obviously, Zoom is become a verb. It's no longer just the name of a company. So, to your point, it's enabling what perhaps the company wanted to work on earlier, but wasn't able to because they were so busy and they were doing, one thing or another. So once you got, 8 years later, we hit 2008, and there's a financial crisis. There's the Great Recession, as they call it. So obviously that was another challenging time. Do you think that you took the same approach at that time, and you just, you kept going at it in terms of that philosophy, or did you do anything different at that point? Because now it's your second rodeo, so you kind of know what to deal with and how to look at it.
Right. We kept focused on our customers. I think that's where we never took our eyes off our customers.
Mm-hmm.
So being actively involved with our customers, understanding what they're looking for, and adding those modules to your customers, it basically helps you succeed. It is basically your innovation. So during that time is when INZoom, we started pushing more on our enterprise edition of the product. So we built in modules and features that larger law firms and law firms who are very would like to adopt technology to the next level. So we invested in our enterprise edition of INZoom. That's what basically helped us to push through the second recession. So we didn't even feel that it was a recession, because though some of our customers were reducing their licenses, but along with that, there's still a market out there, bigger firms that are out there, and they wanted to increase the efficiency. Even their corporations, they wanted to put a system around their immigration processes.
Mm-hmm.
So we're able to go after bigger law firms and as well as bigger corporations to adopt technology. So that is a time where it's again innovation that basically helped us to weather the recession. Again, same thing applies to my customers as well. Some of them it hit them, but they took that opportunity to figure out, retool themselves, come up with a different marketing strategy, and come up with a different way of telling their firm story, and adopting better technology, adopting better practice in the firm. So when things slow down, it gives an opportunity for you to sit back and think through, hold on a minute, now I don't have to run. Let me see what is the best I can do to help our customers, and what is hurting my customers today, so that I can take those problems and solve them. And at that time, if you want to build those tools and features, customers will still buy them. I mean, if you look, example is with the COVID-19 happening, I think some of the companies who are reluctant to adopt your labelless, I'm sure they jumped on, right? Though things are uncertain, but if there is a value for a product, customers would buy and they will invest in it.
Go ahead.
So it's all about basically solving a customer's problem.
What gave you the confidence, to go for the first time to that next big client, or the first big client? You've worked with, let's say you were working with a lot of smaller clients. I'm curious, kind of maybe from a mindset perspective, because I think a lot of startups in any industry would be interested. How do you approach that first big client? You kind of have to put on your big boy suit and say, I can play with the wolves. Just curious if you have any thoughts on that.
One of the marketing strategy we had at INZoom was a happy customer is our slogan for marketing. So we never had a marketing person, and we just wanted to make sure every customer that will sign up is a happy customer. Mm-hmm. That is one. And some of these customers that were working our client side, they started moving to larger law firms. So they became our brand ambassadors. So that's how we start getting recognition from the bigger firms, number one. Mm. Second one is we used to go to a lot of ILA conferences. And in ILA conference, we have a booth, we do a demo of our product. And so that also gave us traction with some of the bigger players in the market. So they would stop by our booth, or I knew that, hey, here is a certain law firms that were bigger firms in the country. So, and if I saw them in the ILA conference with their name badge, then I would try to go back and strike conversation and speak to them about what INSZoom can do, how it could help. So this is what I was doing in the early days. But after 2007 and 8, it became much easier because we had well established in the market, and customers knew about it. And even many large law firms, they were knocking on our doors. And many of the law firms that we have as a customers today who are really big, they weren't big in those days.
True.
I mean, we're very instrumental in their success. We work with them hand to hand. When I talked about we built an enterprise edition in 2007 and 8, it is because some of these law firms customers that I had, they were growing. And they were looking for newer features to win a new RFP, or they were working to get a new large corporate customer. So we're helping them to building technology tools so that they come across much stronger in their pitch to the corporate customer. In many of those situations, I have personally gone and done a demo of INSZoom on behalf of my customer. And we have won many of those deals. And some of those large law firms we have as a customer today. And they are with us even till today because we help them win those deals and we help them keep those accounts by constantly innovating with technology. So it is just our philosophy is to basically ensure that our customers succeed. If they succeed, then we succeed. And even today, and it works. And for any business to succeed or any idea to succeed, if your customers succeed, they're going to grow. When they grow, and you grow along with them.
I love that.
So some of the law firms I know today, they had only 10 user license. I signed them up in 2002. And today they have 170 users with INSZoom. So, and I'm very proud that it's just one example. There are many firms that we work with who have been a success story for them. We worked hand to hand. And again, I would like to really thank my customers, because when we build these modules, when you introduce Enterprise Edition, though fees were much higher, and they were supporting us. They did not try to come back, oh, you know what, I'm not going to pay you that kind of money. They said, Umesh, if you can build it, it definitely adds a value to my practice, and we're good. So this constant support from immigration law firms and some of the corporations that I was working with, it helped us to build our Enterprise Edition of the product. Then that helped us to increase our revenue and still stay profitable. So that we really didn't have to go and raise funds at all.
It's a really good lesson also to think about how if a startup has clients that are smaller, because typically really large enterprises they don't very often go with a very, very small startup just for various reasons. But it's important to think that if you keep at it, your clients will grow. And as your clients grow, you will just grow with them. And so to your point, and if you can help them grow, that's even better, because that's more of symbiosis in that relationship. It's a really, really good lesson. I think to that question, to bring it kind of into, and we're having some questions coming in too. And for other folks, if you're watching, if you have some other questions, please drop them in the comments. I obviously we can't get to every question, but we'll get to at least some, and in a little bit once we kind of move over to them. But please keep asking questions. I'm seeing all of them, even though they're not on the screen. I do see all of them. Coming to where we are today, after the last recession, and obviously since then, we've had different we've had different presidents. Now we have the Trump administration, which has been presented challenges to the immigration industry. During the Obama and previous to that, there are always some pull and tug of push and pull in the immigration space. One thing that obviously we are all hearing, because we're in the industry, is people are worried and people don't know what's going to happen. And even with what's already happened, I've talked to immigration lawyers who are thinking about leaving the practice because either they're frustrated or they're really losing business, et cetera. What are some, thoughts that you have, or some recommendations, having gone through different political parties and maybe past challenges to the immigration space, if you have any. What do you think these folks should be thinking about in terms of what immigration is going to look like?
I've been in this country for the last 30 years. And in 1992, George Bush Sr., he expanded green card quota for software professionals. And I was able to get my green card within actually 9 months.
Wow.
And that would typically take around 3 years during that time for engineers, either software engineer in Silicon Valley. That's how it was. And that's how quick we were able to get green cards during those days. And today, people are waiting for a green card for even 15 years right now. And it's crazy. But one thing that I have seen is immigration is so natural to this universe. Everything is moving. So nobody can really stop immigration. Immigration is how this entire universe and the nature operates. So I'm a very firm believer in that. And today, in last 20 years, yes, there have been a talk of changing immigration laws and immigration in the country. But what has really done, in my opinion, is it has actually increased the market size for immigration. It has brought more education at every level. I remember in 92, when I was getting my H1 and green card done, HR manager didn't even know what green card meant, what is a labor certification was. And today, you'll see there are more folks in most of the companies who understand what this immigration means and what a perm process is, what I-140 is, right? And what a green card is, and what H1B is, what LCA is, what an L1s are, right? People are learning about this more than ever before. So I don't think if someone is struggling today for immigration because of rules, there are other opportunities that are coming up in this industry. So that's something that we have to look out. There is always something that can be done. We need to get more creative. If we're doing the same thing for too long, you will not succeed. You have to keep changing the way you operate, and we have to be innovative. Just leave immigration law firms or even INSZoom. Let's look at Microsoft, such a successful company. 10 years back, I thought they were going to go down. Literally, I thought that's going to happen. In the last 5 years, and they changed the whole thing. What did they do, right? They are in cloud today. Mm-hmm. They brought Azure, right? So any company or any business or any individual, we have to innovate. Innovation is the way for us to be relevant and stick around. Things are going to change. Like for us, all the change that they came in immigration, I always looked at it as an opportunity. Like Trump's immigration bans, all of this, it is basically an opportunity for us to solve the problem so that we have to help our customers, so that our customers can help the foreign nationals and others. This is a challenge going to come. They're not going to stop. And the market for immigration itself is growing worldwide. Like, let's take in India itself. And 15 years back, you go to India, Indian immigration was handled by cops. It was greeted by cops. And they didn't even know how to deal with people visiting. And today, India has a formal immigration department. There are people who are trained in immigration. There are visas for a business. There's a visas for short-term work permit. There are visas. Again, Indian government is planning for a citizenship amendment. What all this shows? So immigration is going to become a huge opportunity as the time passes. Every country is going to formalize these processes in their country to make immigration better for improve their economy and as well as the success of their own countries. So I see that immigration markets will grow. Let's look at ILA itself. When we started INSZoom in 2000, the membership was around 6,500 people. I would say around that or maybe less. And today, ILA membership is over 15,000 attorneys, right? Mm-hmm. So it's almost close to 3 times in 20 years. So it's growing. So anybody who's struggling, I would look at it as a small dip you're going to go through, but use this time to re-innovate and do something different. That's going to basically make your firm look, stand apart different from the rest of the competition.
One thing I was thinking about too, I'm very big on marketing and I love doing different things in industries, even this podcast being one of them. I think for immigration law firms or any industry right now, it's also a really good time to just try something new and different and almost wacky and crazy, because everything is so different right now that if you come up with, if you're a traditional immigration law firm and all of a sudden you're doing webinars, or you have an ebook, or you're doing some kind of an online game show where somebody wins a 15-minute consultation with you if they get all the points, something totally not normal for our industry, it would be taken right now in stride, because there are so many changes happening, and everyone recognizes that because there's an economic downturn and because it's challenging, people recognize that businesses are trying new things. But I think because they recognize that, they're more forgiving for something new and different and out of the box. And it's really interesting. I think it could be a really good time for creative people to, who run businesses or even who are supporting businesses in a marketing role, or business development role, to just go out there and do something crazy and see what sticks. And I think that, to me, is part of the retooling process. Automation, for sure, right? Go and look at your process. And if you've been go this whole time, now all of a sudden things have slowed down. You could go back and clean up your folders, get rid of that paperwork, put it on the cloud. Look at what process you've been handling on a spreadsheet and see if there's a tool that can help you handle that. That's all for sure. And then the second thing for me that's interesting is this marketing piece, right? How do you brand yourself? How do you show the world who you are and how you're different from your competitors in a really new and innovative way? So I think, to me, this is also an opportunity for that. But it requires you to believe that you will come out of this with a business remaining. So I think that's the first thing. People have to realize that if you're really hanging by a thread, and your business wasn't going well beforehand, then right now it's not going to be a happy time. But if you've just slowed down, but you'll make it over the next half year, 1 year, maybe 2 years on a slower pace, but you'll come out of this. It's a really, really interesting time.
What I would recommend is we should, when you run a business, always anticipate there are going to be slowdown. There's going to be recession. As long as you keep your costs down and always keep focusing on efficiency within the company by using best way to increase efficiency of the firm is technology. That is the best friend for you to increase efficiency. As long as you are always keep in mind, hey, recession can hit anytime, or I might lose one of my big customer. Just keep that in your mind. You don't want to lose the big customer, but it can happen. So as long as you keep planning that it could happen, then you will be around forever. You don't need to worry about it. So anticipate slowdown will happen. Second was innovate and focus on efficiency. And again, you brought up a good point of marketing. So you have to have a good marketing engine to basically, I'm not saying that you need to put hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm saying put a focus on using technology to market your firms, because most of the time today, people are going to find you on the internet. They're going to look at your website. Your website is they're going to perceive who you are. And very rarely people are going to come in person see you. So it's important to have a good marketing, I would say, storefront for your business, whether it's a technology or even the immigration law firm. Mm-hmm. It's very important. That's how you tell your story, who you are. So I think as long as you're done, you anticipate, I think we shouldn't have anybody business should be able to thrive and survive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even more so right now than before, LinkedIn, YouTube, all these platforms, because we can't go to in-person conferences, we can't go to in-person coffee meetings, have your coffee meetings virtually, kind of like you and I are having right now. So, it's a really good segue. I want to kind of jump into one of the questions that have come out, looking forward, right? I'm really interested in the future of the immigration space. We've talked a little bit about how people can think about the future, getting over this hump, right? But what if we look 5 or 10 years down the line? And I'm asking this because one of our viewers, Abhi Chawla, asks, generally, he asked specifically, so another company recently called Immigration Tracker, there was an acquisition. What do you make of the Tracker acquisition? To me, it's a little bit more of an even general question of what are your thoughts on, and I'm curious too, what are your thoughts in general of M&A or just these kind of corporate events in the immigration space? Do you think that it'll happen more in the future? Do you think there's a place for it? If the immigration market is growing, that means that, and we're seeing more entrants coming in, doing different things. Where do you think acquisition or mergers come into play going into the future?
10 years back, there was literally no one to acquire immigration tech companies. I mean, based on the market and the legal tech was almost non-existent. But today, even in immigration itself, there are a lot of companies coming up. That's very promising, which means there's a lot of innovation happening, and this market is going to grow. So, which means the M&A will start happening now. So, and a tracker got acquired recently by Mitra Tech. So it is an example. So means investors are watching what is happening in immigration legal tech. That is a great sign. So anybody out there who's planned to build their own immigration legal tech product, I think you are on the right time right now. So in pretty soon, in a few years, there are going to be a lot of M&As going to happen in this space, because this global immigration market itself is going to grow. And what we have today and another 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it's going to be much, much huge. And definitely there's going to be space for innovation, for new ideas and new product companies, and opportunity for M&A. So that's what I see in coming soon.
I agree, and I think whether it's an acquisition or even a VC investment where somebody from outside the immigration industry is looking at putting their money into and putting trust behind an immigration tech company, that means they're first of all, that they're paying attention. That's number one. Yep. But number two, they've noticed it, and they also think that there's some promise, that there's some growth to it. I think it's one thing to say that somebody who is not in the immigration space might not exactly know the nuances, but on the other hand, a venture capitalist sees the world at an even higher level. And so if somebody like that has at least some trust in the trajectory of this industry, I think it's a good sign for everyone, whether or not someone is looking to be acquired or get investment dollars. Just the idea is that it is growing and everyone is growing together. It also this kind of goes into another question, because, obviously acquisition typically comes from the value that you bring to another organization, how much you've been scaling, how quickly you've been scaling, et cetera. This question is, what has been your biggest life lesson scaling INSZoom?
The biggest life lesson, as I was speaking to you before, if you have an idea, before you build it, validate it with potentially who's willing to pay for it. Remember, the first 2 products I built, I did not talk to anybody who would pay for me. I just built the product. That is the easiest part. The getting customers is the hardest part. So the best way to do is going to be have a conversation with some prospects and listen to them. It is something that they will be willing to buy if you basically build that. And if the prospect or whom you're speaking to, if he says, look, he doesn't want to pay, give me for free, then you are speaking to a wrong prospect. Because if your solution does not solve a problem for him, then he's not going to pay for it. So find customers who are struggling with the problem, and your solution, if it can solve the problem, then work with them, and you don't need to offer your services for free. That's something that we did from day one. Our service was never offered free. Even today, one customer says, oh, give me free for this. We tell them, listen, I will solve problem for you. I will make you more efficient. I will increase your efficiency by 10%, 20%, 30%. Look at how much money you're saving. And my software cost is almost very little if you compare with that. So we focus on truly solving the customer problem. I think if we can go on solving customer problems, don't worry about the discounting your product. So I think if this is done, I think you can always grow and be around in the industry for a long time.
Yeah, it's a great, the way to scale is scale sustainably, I guess.
Yep.
You know,
I had a friend of mine he built a product and he didn't succeed. I asked him what happened. Then when he was building the product, he was speaking to subject matter experts in that industry as opposed to the prospects. So that's why I told him, why did you speak to SME? Because he's going to just keep on telling his ideas. But you need to speak to someone who is struggling with that problem. So I think that's where, if we can basically identify customers who have a challenge, you build a solution and they will pay, and you'll be able to grow along with them. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and sometimes people don't even realize a subject matter expert might be so technically minded that the problems they think exist don't actually exist in the world, and something that exists is something that the SME wouldn't even have noticed. Yep. I think about from the user experience perspective too. You might build something assuming that a user is going to use your product a certain way, and then you give it to them and they do something completely differently. And then you're thinking in your head, but this doesn't make sense. The button clearly is here, but for some reason they go there. Yep. And yeah, I mean, to your point, you can never really know. If you're operating on assumptions, you're going to lose at some point. But if you're operating on actual information, even if it's a slower process maybe, and it's more incremental, every step of the way, you're taking with sort of validation behind it. Yeah, I love that. It's a really interesting juxtaposition. What is that person doing now? Do they have another company or do they work somewhere? I'm just curious.
No, he's right now working somewhere else.
Okay.
I think one year, passionate about building a new product, right? It's very important that we speak to folks who are entrepreneurs in the past. You learn a lot. I mean, reason how I learned that I should speak to a prospect. There was when I was working on a job on a company, and that company sold a software to the corporation that I was working for. So since it was their second customer, I was on that project. So I had the opportunity to work with that company founder and a CEO. So what now? It is in mid-90s. So I asked him, how did you come up with the idea? How did you get these customers? And he told me his story that when they had an idea, they went back and talked to this large corporation in the East Coast. And the company liked their idea. And these folks went back in their house, they built it with literally no funding, and went back and gave the product. And that was their first $2 million order. Then they came to the company that I was working for, and our company was a $3 million order for them.
Wow.
So our second customer, right? So that actually inspired me that, hey, that's what I realized about. Man, what I did wrong was I was not speaking to paying prospects. I was just imagining things. I was just building products. So I have to speak to people who are willing to pay and build what they are looking for. So that is basically where my inspiration comes from. And that company is right now is publicly traded. You must have heard about it, called MicroStrategy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is in East Coast in Washington, D.C. area. So I had the opportunity to work with the founder and CEO of MicroStrategy in the early days.
So when you were working, the company you're working at was MicroStrategy's second client ever?
Yep.
Wow, that is cool.
Yep.
It's also interesting because I think sometimes with pricing, because there are always going to be clients or prospects that want something for free or for much cheaper. I think especially lawyers, I say that as a lawyer myself, but lawyers want a process, but we also are a service industry, and so we need to make sure that financials are being managed correctly. But I think with software, you get what you pay for in a way. If you want something that's cheap or free, how do you expect the people on the other end to support your use of the software and to give you the bug fixes and to give you the new features that you want if you don't pay? I think there's a disconnect. I think with a service industry, you say, Umesh, paint me a painting and I'll give you $1,000. I give you $1,000 and you give me a canvas with oil on it. And so I know what I paid for. With software, on the one hand, the product itself is scalable. You can have one user, you can have a million users. Generally speaking, it's kind of the same thing. So, but the business of software is the support. It's the continuous innovation and the continuous fixing and the continuous addition of things and the kind of R&D, the research and development. So I feel like part of the conversations that I like to have is just reframing the mind of the immigration industry to say, look, if we don't invest in technology, we're not going to get good technology. We need to be able to say this is not a forgotten about expense. This should be something at the top of my list to really put my resources behind, because if I do that, I'm going to have really, really good results.
Everyone, all of us will want things free, right? But there's no doubt. But when you have a product or a feature that you want to sell additional price to that, we need to be able to convince the customer that really solve the problem. If it cannot solve the problem, they will not value it, they will not pay. So we need to focus on solving the problem and educating the customers. So the biggest challenge that we had for INSZoom in the early days was we were in the cloud, and all the software that being sold on the market that time was in a desktop-based software. And even our competition was trying to tell a story that, hey, having your data on the cloud is, you have a risk of losing your data. You could get hacked or whatever it is, right? So we had to educate our customers saying that, listen, cloud is the future and our software is the future. Having a software in your desktop, it's more expensive for you to upgrade. You will not get the latest updates on time. And you have to deal with the software maintenance. You don't have to do any of this stuff, right? So you need to be able to really educate your customers. If you educate them enough, then when they see a value, and they'll come on board. It's very important that you educate them, customers, as much as you can. If the education doesn't happen, then it would impact the value of your product, and the customer will not be willing to pay the price that you're asking for.
So if I can ask a follow-up question, how do you recommend other companies educate their clients?
I think that's I would say biggest challenge every entrepreneur has to solve. Mm-hmm. So you need to know your customers and find out what is the best way to convey the message to them. So how do your customers respond better, right? Is the webinar a good option? Is it a newsletter that you're going to push in? Or do you have to do small, TikTok videos or have things on a Facebook advertisement, right? So you need to know your customers very well, where you are going to get a good ROI on what you do. And that's what we did in early days for INSZoom. We invested a lot with ILA's trade shows, ILA conferences, and ILA magazines. So we were there and we talked about it. Then we had our customers and talk about the value that a SaaS product would bring to the table. So to each other, right? So it's just a combination of things that we'll have to do creatively to figure out how do you make that impact to your prospects so that they understand what you bring to the table. Mm-hmm. It's hard. I'm not saying, but you need to come up with creative ways. That's what I'm saying. If you just keep on doing the same thing, you may not get story, but you'll have to just put a focus on understanding your customers better and come up with a solution.
I want to ask you one more question.
Sure.
If you could do it over, what would you have changed and why?
If I could do it over again, I would have probably scaled much faster than what we have done. I would have basically probably been in more countries than what we're today. So I think we could have scaled much faster and much more aggressively for INSZoom. I mean, we are doing well, and we are the leading provider of case management in the United States. But there are other countries, they still are not solution, which are as strong as the products that are out there in the US market. Mm-hmm. So if I had to really look back, I think our goal is to basically, I would have been more aggressive in the international market. Mm-hmm. That is exactly what we're focusing right now. We're looking at how do we take our solution while we continue to stay focused on our US immigration. We're looking at how do we scale ourselves to other parts of the world offering immigration solutions.
Yeah, as I meet more people and talk to more people on the international space, you realize that a lot of what we think about is very inbound focused and US focused, and maybe let's say North America focused. Now Canada is very much on the map. UK is always, with Brexit, UK immigration was on, but every country, to the point you made earlier, every country has an immigration system, whether it's really sophisticated and has really automation, government automation, or it's something where every day you come into the regional government office and something changes, whatever it may be, everyone has an immigration system. And really the question would be, in my vision, sometime down the future, the ideal world would be a singular platform, maybe multiples of them, because, we need some competition, but, platform where people from anyone in the world doing inbound, outbound, et cetera, immigration can really put all the resources into that, into that platform and have everything that they need at their fingertips. So, yeah.
I think I do agree with what you're saying with the influx of a lot of tech products in legal tech as well as in immigration. I think we'll get there. I think legal tech and immigration tech will go much faster in the next 10 years than it did in the last 20 years. And I think legal tech is going to have a great future next 10 years. I'm a firm believer in that. Just look at what else is happening around us. It is amazing.
I agree with you 100%. So for anybody out there listening who is, building an immigration technology or legal tech startup or company, keep going. You'll get there. We'll all get there together. So Umesh, thank you so much for your time. I want to ask you one fun question to join. You're a tinkerer, you're a builder. You built 2 companies before you really landed on INSZoom and took it to where it is today. If INSZoom wasn't in your life and you had unlimited resources, what kind of solution would you solve with technology in the world, and why? And it could be really serious, or it could be as interesting and silly as you want.
I think as I said, I've been always passionate about software and building a software product. So, if it's not immigration, what is that I would have done? I don't have an answer, because I promised a thought of at least 100 ideas between 96 through 99 to figure out which one we want to do it. Just I never zeroed on anything unless I met a prospect who's willing to buy or who believes in the solution that I'm providing. So even today, if I had to do something else, I'm going to look for someone. There's a problem, and if you can find a solution, if they're willing to pay, then I get my match. Then I'll move on. That's how I look at it.
True businessman. Answered as a true businessman. Well, Umesh, thank you so much for your time. And, we've got a bunch of, just as a shout out, we have Shiv here who says, "Hi, Umesh. Great to hear the INSZoom journey. Very inspiring." Thank you, Shiv. Yeah. So what a great story. And so cool too, right? To hear the fact that, again, you were a startup. Everyone was a startup. If we want to use that word, everyone started somewhere. And I think to hear those initial stories just reminds us that anyone else could get there, whatever industry they're in or whatever they're trying to do. So, thank you for sharing. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate your insights. I have a lot of homework to do based on what we've talked about. So, really, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Roman. Thanks, everyone who's listening to this podcast. Again, I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
So thank you, everybody, so much. I know today was a Thursday episode and not the usual Friday, but I am taking tomorrow off as a Friday. The perks of being your own boss, you could give yourself a Friday off. But I will be back next Friday with another really, really great guest to talk more about the immigration technology and growth space. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Whatever you're listening on, make sure to subscribe or follow, and reach out to me if you have any questions about it. So thank you, everybody. Peace out.